Sonny, maybe we'll have you back after the election if you're up for it for a little post-election analysis.
Sure.
Um,
What's your prediction?
God, I mean, I see the polls starting to turn to Trump, but I saw what happened in 2022 as well when they were saying the GOP was going to take both chambers of Congress. So I'm cautiously. I mean, I'm a little pessimistic. I suspect they're gonna do the same mail-in operation, and it'll be Kamala and a squeaker.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably right.
Welcome to the Ayn Rand Fan Club. I'm Scott Schiff along with William Swig. William, how are you today?
I am magnificent. How are you?
Oh,
I'm good, good. I was pleasantly surprised. Apparently, we're very pleased to have Sonny Lohmann back with us. Sonny,
I'm
welcome.
here to make more predictions.
That's right. Since our predictions were so good, I mean, I guess just you know, I I don't think that was a completely wrong attitude to have. Just I expected us to win in 2020. So I was trying to manage my expectations, and the upside of that is that we got to be so pleasantly surprised to in fact
Yeah.
usher in a new dawn of a golden age.
Yeah, better to uh under promise and over deliver.
That's right, just like Trump, on time and under budget. Oh, William, you actually kind of predicted things right in the election.
Yes, I did.
And we've got a clip of that. Well, at least you were right so far.
I'm very positive. I think the country's going to wise up and Kamala will get blown away in a landslide and Trump will become victorious and he'll become our king. And for for the rest of his life, he'll just rule like a king over the kingdom of America.
Is that positive?
Part of that prediction still remains to be fulfilled.
That's
Oh,
right.
yeah. I've never been so glad to be right.
He,
And
he,
I do continue to pray that he will become our king. So I just want the left to just go so insane that their heads explode.
I know,
And
right?
He
and
could
I
be
think
Emperor of Greenland.
yes, Greenland and the Panama Canal. So
Absolutely.
he will be Lord. Eventually, we're gonna just take over the whole world, hopefully. And he will be king of the world, emperor of the universe.
I do
And
think that that's going on to some extent, that the world is kind of regionalizing, and he's seeing that. And that's maybe part of what's driving Greenland and even Canada to some extent.
yeah, well, what people don't realize is that Trump is immortal. And so it doesn't matter how long it takes for the United States to take over the universe, Trump will still be our king at that moment. So, eventually it's going to happen. And ultimately, he'll become like this benevolent Thanos type. And he'll just
I'm
snap his
glad
fingers.
you're committed to the prediction.
Yeah. And he'll just become this benevolent Thanos. He'll snap his fingers. Everything will be right. And glory to Trump.
So, just talking about, the inauguration, I mean, the last couple of days, just remembering what it's like to be at this Trump like pace of change and executive orders. And, I mean, he's doing it at least partially to keep his political opponents off balance as to, what he's going to try for hardest.
I'm still worried about the deep, deep state, but like taking the security clearance away from those 51 ex-CIAs. I mean, he's got to act quickly because they're after him. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they try, look what they did in his first administration and how immediately they were sabotaging the people around him. And he ended up being um you know, they had the Mueller report and or the Mueller investigation and the impeachments and all that stuff. So I mean, if he doesn't kind of act swiftly, first of all, the open border is such a security risk and such a disaster. So he obviously moved very quickly to close that, close that down. And
Yeah.
um, but also I just, the DEI stuff, the putting a team in each agency that's gonna like review their efficiency
One of the
and the security clearances. But I'm wondering, what is he gonna do? Like he still doesn't have we need to get his picks into the heads of the law enforcement agencies, the FBI, the DOJ, and those are and Hegseth too. And all those are being held up. So that's not a surprise.
Yeah, that's happening, but they won't be able to do that forever. One thing I was encouraged, he seems to have directed the Justice Department to go after any local officials that aren't going to play ball with the deportation orders. And it seems like not only is it to put those local government officials on notice, but it's also putting these FBI agents and Justice Department officials on notice. It's like a test to see whether
Yeah.
they're going to enforce the law, and he can maybe use that to fire them with cause if they don't.
I was thinking that same thing too. And same with the DEI stuff, because now people are trying to hide these DEI people by I don't know if you saw this yesterday, but they're changing their titles within
Right.
the organization and changing the name of their department to be, special projects or something, without the words that are in the executive order, but obviously a violation of the spirit of the thing. And they're all being exposed. And then they're saying, you are going to be in trouble if this is fraud against the American people, and you're going to be in trouble if you do this. So it seems like there's a number of tests. So that's fine. But I still worry about the people really operating in the very bowels of the
Sure.
the swamp, the law enforcement, the CIA, the military, and the FBI.
I think what we're seeing is that Trump has learned from his first administration, and he's now directly taking on the deep state and all these regulators and prosecutors and all this lawfare that gave him trouble in his first term. And I think what he's trying to do in these first days of his office, he's trying to set a tone and a direction for what needs to happen. The country needs to get behind him in this crusade he's got against the deep state. And so he described his mandate in the inaugural address as reversing the decline of America, reversing the betrayals. And he's obviously referring to the Biden administration and this,
And Biden had to sit there and take it.
yeah,
Oh
and
my
this
God,
like,
was that funny? Not just Biden though, but like the Obama era. I mean, just, the betrayals. I mean, actually it goes back farther than that, but the
But that's when the
anti-Americanism.
PC era really
Yeah, right.
started.
The real racist anti-American stuff really started under
Hmm.
Obama.
but he addressed some really broad ideas, in that speech, including just the idea of having president that betrayed his own country. He's trying to reverse that, and he's also dealing with the woke ideology and all of the DEI stuff, all this stuff that's come from the left that's destroying America. He's setting the tone of reversing that. And I think that's the grand scheme of things. And I think that's the proper way to go about the war he's waged against them, um, in the broad strokes, and just get people behind him, in abstract sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's going on. I think some of what he's doing is just making the left be busy trying to counter what he's doing, like revoking affirmative action. It's like now they have to fight that in court if they want to keep it there. Meanwhile, he's enacting the other parts of his agenda.
So he's got two pronged attack, right? He's got to reverse all of the crap that we've been dealing with from the left, but he's also got to push us ahead and advance America. So like his ideas like with the Panama Canal and Greenland, these are things that are trying to advance America and get us more power around the world, and more
Yeah,
uh,
the pro-American stuff, the Gulf of America, the Panama. I mean, I think that's partly what's needed too, is this recapturing this sense of our own goodness and sort of, I mean, I'm not sure,
And confidence.
confidence, yeah, and just like boldness and right to exist. And I used to think when I was young that America was good, and so therefore anything we sort of touched, we made better. And that was kind of a moral justification for that. I no longer believe that. However, I think that it can be true in certain situations, and certainly the Panama Canal. Like China should not be down there running the freaking Panama Canal. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sorry, but China is not good. They're really evil. And I know that we have issues, but we generally promote trade around the world. And I think um, certainly as sort of the biggest economy and everything, it just makes more sense. And also we built it. And so
it comes from this America First theme that he's got going on in his campaign. Because if you're like the left and you believe in like altruism and America sucks and we should just be, bowing to the rest of the world, then you're not gonna think of America as worthy of advancing themselves in the world.
yeah,
But if you believe in America first, that's basically a self-interested foreign policy. Then you're going to go after things that you think you deserve in the world, like the Panama Canal. Like he makes an argument in his inauguration speech for taking over Panama Canal. It's like, yeah, we built it. We died. American lives bled for it, and then we promised it to another country that's not running it now. So it's like, why is China running it? And so he's got this argument, and it comes out of this America First. Like, why should at least Panama should have it, But if Panama's not going to run it, then we need to run it.
Well, and
So
again, I don't we don't know what his end game is. He may be thrilled to just have an American company manage it, so that US companies aren't getting ripped off, competitively versus China.
that was another argument he made, the economic argument. So he's got all these arguments for it, and that comes from the America First attitude. Like
yeah.
looking out for your own self-interest, and this is where logic and reason comes from, is like, what's best for you. So he's got the right approach, and I hope he makes it happen. I hope he can make it happen.
I
Yeah,
feel like the legal argument is there. They have clearly violated the treaty, and you know, and I think Trump has said, either they step up and run it, or we're going to do it. So maybe they'll step up and run it, and maybe they'll do it with our help, but they have to change how they're
they're going to
operating
have
with
to
China
change.
and everything. So I think that's the right way to frame it, is not, listen, we don't necessarily need to come in and take it, but that means you have to abide by this treaty, and we have to be given special consideration, and you can't just let China run it. And um so there's just, he's so good at framing things so that it's not just this bomb. It's funny because he's considered this bombastic sort of brute, but just look at the subtlety of that. The subtlety of that negotiation is, it's not just bull in a china closet, like we're gonna come in and take it and F you. He's giving them all kinds of, ways to make it a more reasonable situation,
Right. Any one of
um,
which he'll declare a win on. And rightly
without
so.
compromising the idea that the fundamental, like you said, America First principle.
Well, this also
Hmm.
comes from a deeper personality trait of a leader, of a true leader, is that he surrounds himself with the best people who know what they're talking about, who can give him these arguments. Like, I'm not saying he came up with all of these great ideas, but he's got enough intelligence to know who can give him these ideas, who can come up with them, like smart
Yeah.
people. So, and that's
Uh,
what you don't get with a Biden who's brain dead. And so Biden can't come up with smart people. He's not even, he doesn't even know how to speak anymore.
well, the
So,
smart people were the technocrats making the decisions around him based on, whatever deep state Democrat agenda is being pushed at the moment. I want to switch gears a little bit here to this idea of TikTok. So Biden, was about to get rid of TikTok, and Trump kind of saved it for now. He's trying to turn it into a deal where he cuts a deal with China, but it's a tough one. It's tough to know what's right. I mean, they say that China's basically using it as malware. So, I mean, I don't know if maybe a restriction on government employees or anyone with access to sensitive data, or I mean, is it the moral effect? And I mean that it doesn't seem very libertarian or objectivist to support the ban based on that. And I mean, Trump seemed to be championing the ban early on, even in his first administration, but now he's just kind of turned, and presumably it's just because some of the people campaigning for him were on TikTok.
well, I'm for less trade with China. I don't think it's fair trade to make your own businesses in America compete with essentially slave labor in China. But I don't know enough about the TikTok issue. It's kind of a technical problem, like what is actually going on with their software or algorithms or whatever they're using to relay information back to China, and like how much information is going back to China.
Right.
So that's a question I don't know the answer to. But it seems like any investigation could figure that out. If they investigate TikTok and dig into their servers and stuff, or whatever they need to do to figure that out. So I think it's just a question that needs to be answered, in some sort of federal investigation of TikTok.
But that's not what's happened. I mean, basically, a law has been passed that it was supposed to have been blocked by now. And to some extent, I mean, Trump's in violation of the law. He's just waiting for the lawsuit. And if he has a buyer, I guess, they'll be able to go through it because the law said unless they had a buyer by like December 31st or something, or maybe it was January 19th.
I'm extremely troubled by the I would call it a two-tiered look at these things. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like the TikTok ban is a ban on anti-Semitism, and we're seeing laws passed banning anti-Semitism on campuses. Like I just don't agree with those types of laws. I'm, you know, people should be able to speak. However, I don't think they should allow crazy protests on universities. I think that should just be freaking ended. You don't, this idea that students should go to universities and become activists, they don't know jack shit, you know? And that practice, if we're worried about the intimidation factor of that on universities, which I think is valid, because certainly conservatives have been intimidated
For
for
years,
years
yeah,
on
before
campuses,
Trump.
and I don't think that's right. However, people need to be able to be racist. It's perfectly okay to be racist. I mean, morally, whatever, but I'm saying free speech wise, I think tyranny is worse than racism. So the racism has to be allowed. And that going after TikTok, but not going after other apps that maybe are doing the same thing, scraping data. Like apparently there's a lot of China apps and they're all scraping data. And then I agree with William that, we shouldn't even be trading with China. And I know that it would be extremely painful. I think Vivek was the only person who talked about that on the campaign trail, that it would be painful, but we need to do it because this is this is an evil empire. They've got they've basically given their evil empire monologue, letting us all know what their plan is to take over the freaking world. And we're helping them by trading with them and letting them take our money and our IP and our data and our DNA data. And like, I mean, it's insane. And then on top of that, we are, we are like harming our own industry by making them compete with slave labor and literally driving them out of business. And not only that, but like, did you know this is something I learned years ago and just couldn't believe? Our postal system subsidizes shipping from China.
Yeah, I mean they're losing money. They subsidize for everyone they ship for, I guess. Amazon and
But I mean, we don't pay. China companies don't have to charge shipping because we subsidize it with our federal money. We pay for China shipping. So
hmm,
it's not an even playing field. If you buy something from Indiana, you have to pay for shipping. If you buy something from China, you don't have to pay for shipping.
yeah,
So
that
we're setting up our own companies to lose, and then they go out of business, and then we end up in this situation where we don't make anything and we're dependent on an evil empire that's
maybe
not
that could be
only doing
changed.
this to us but doing this to every other country on earth.
Right. But I
And
mean, but some objectivists will say, "Oh, you can't do tariffs. It's either there's an trade embargo like you're talking about or you have full trade with no restrictions." And to some extent, I mean, it's going to be pain to stop dealing with China, and maybe tariffs might be like an incremental way to wean ourselves off, make other countries more competitive as we're devolving the relationship slowly. And other things like taking the Panama Canal back is part of that.
The thing with tariffs for me, it's not an ideal problem solver, but it does punish the people who do trade with China instead of punishing, businessmen who are losing out to China. So it does shift the punishment, um, and I think it shifts it in the correct direction. Like if I'm doing multi-million dollars worth of trade with China, maybe I should be punished, with tariffs.
But if
But
we're if we're seeing that China's a threat, they're doing things, they're blackmailing, or whatever they're doing, or they're trying to have influence, that it's going to hurt us to just cut things off right away, so that yeah, this would, like you're saying, it would be a way to incrementally encourage people to trade with other countries instead that aren't trying to do these types of things to us.
well, however it's done, I think we do have to have an understanding that we shouldn't trade with these people or that country, and we're enriching them. And do you ever? I always think about how people are, oh, China, they're doing such a good job. They are sucking our wealth and using that to do their good job, quote unquote. You know what I'm saying? They're communists, they're fascists, they don't produce shit.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
just
yeah,
any
like
well,
what, everybody had this idea that the Soviet Union was so powerful and so strong. And then when the wall fell, we realized, oh no, it was a complete house of cards. And and I think like as free marketers, we have to remember that they don't actually they aren't actually successful. The extent of their success is the extent to which they are mooching and looting us, the people who are actually producing something. And
it is happening in real time. I mean, they have that tech now.
I think trade with China, if we're not going to have an embargo, then it needs to be gradually slowed down and reduced to essential trades. Like I don't mind if we really need some product from China and so we trade for it. But we need to seriously evaluate which product we need as a country. Like
so do you
maybe
support that kind of micromanagement in trade with foreign nations or just with China?
generally just with communist nations or socialist nations.
Or just once someone has shown themselves to be a threat. I mean, I remember 10 years ago reading that they had basically gotten the data from every US government employee. And, they use that. We know I mean, Swalwell had a girlfriend that was a Chinese agent.
Dianne Feinstein had a Chinese agent as her driver for like
Right.
20
Her
years.
handler.
Biden has been proven to take payments from Chinese, CCP people. So
That's
what are
what
we
the
talking
pardons
about
were
here? Like,
about.
it's pretty clear that they are influencing our government with bribes, money they're making off of us. It's like
Yeah. And
it,
maybe not a
it
declaration of war, but a declaration of hostilities.
yeah. I think that has to happen. Like somehow that has to be kind of made clear that this is our stance. And so anything that we do incrementally or whatever, it's based on the idea that this this country needs to be our relationship with them needs to be limited.
Yeah. The problem is they, control one major political party and, have the establishment half of the other.
Yeah.
Well, they've proven, at least China has, that they can influence the Democratic, office officials, especially like Biden. And I think,
You mean with COVID?
well, just with the Ukraine situation, and I mean Ukraine and you know the Chinese situations over there. I don't know what Biden was up to in China, but definitely with the Ukraine situation. Um, so I think that the Biden crime family just proves that corruption is a big problem with for some of these foreign nations, and it needs to be resolved. It needs to, if setting tariffs on certain goods is one way to resolve it temporarily, then I'm fine with that. I don't like tariffs,
This
but
is
that's when we're dealing with countries that largely deal in free trade and they're not communists and don't themselves prevent American businesses from coming in their country. Like why do we even deal with China when they severely restrict American businesses?
but
Right.
we do, and we just can't get out of it in one day.
That's correct. I mean, but I think, but there should be a plan for limiting that over time,
Yeah,
over a
Yeah, I
relatively
mean,
short period of time.
the
the
election
goal
of
is not
Trump
to
was the
solve it in
closest.
one. We're not going to solve it in one day. This
But
is going to be.
TikTok, I mean, so TikTok is part of that. And I guess, but I'm concerned that there are other Chinese apps that are not being restricted. So it seems the concern is that they're propagandizing the young people with TikTok. And
Is that the real reason, or is that just what they're saying?
I think that's just what they're saying. I think that they didn't like, I mean, I think there are other influences besides China. I think there's an Israeli influence. I think people didn't like I mean, this was clear. They said this outright that they didn't, the post 10/7 leftist and youth response to Israel really alarmed some powerful people. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't be alarmed by that, but I think that is causing them to kind of maybe overreact um and ban anti-Semitism on campuses. I mean, even Florida did that.
Yeah. Um, all right, I want to switch gears again to freeing Ross, as well as the J6ers. I think I'm thrilled. I mean, I'm glad the J6ers were released, even the ones that got commutations instead of pardons. But I just think the Ross release was so huge for like
Yeah.
the kind of right libertarian fusion and the vibe. Like the Mises Caucus came in there and they appealed to Trump. Their people took a lot of heat for it. Angela McArdle, the libertarian chair, I mean, she had people saying, hey, we've been trying to free Ross for 10 years and you just showed up a few months ago and you think you want all the credit. It's like, actually, the person that came in at the last few months and got it done does tend to deserve more of the credit. What did you do for 10 years? And they're, they want to say like, oh, Ross was freed, but not acknowledge that Trump getting elected is the reason he was freed.
Do we know how
Who's
many
doing that?
libertarians? Do we
Somebody's
know how
not
many?
acknowledging Trump's role in this?
They were just saying, Ross got freed because of the work we libertarians did. And it's just like it because these are the libertarians that like got kicked out of power in 2022 because they,
Yeah.
rolled over on COVID and the
Yeah.
Floyd stuff in 2020.
Well, both things can be true. I mean, the libertarian people who wanted, we're talking about Ross Ulbricht, and so people who wanted him freed made a campaign and petitioned the president to free him, and so then the president comes in and frees him. So it's not like mutually exclusive responsibilities. I mean, you can be both people can be responsible for the same outcome, just in different ways. And so they successfully persuaded Trump to free him. So they're both responsible for the outcome.
Well, I understand. I'm not even complaining about the libertarians in the Mises caucus. What I'm saying is there were this other faction of libertarians that didn't even want Trump invited to the convention where he made the promise to free Ross. And they were booing him while he was there. And now that Ross is freed, they're just, they're enjoying that Ross was freed, but they don't want to give Angela credit and they don't want to give Trump credit.
Okay, but I mean, do we really care about these people?
Well, it's the same part of the liberty movement that's going to come in and say, for whatever reason, that no matter what good happens, if it was Trump doing it, it was no good. As a matter of fact, someone said something very similar along those lines.
Send this executive order, and a lot of this DEI goes away. And that's exactly what happened. And I consider this a major victory. The only bad thing about all this good stuff that happened, is that Trump did it, right? And I know everybody will just accuse me of having Trump derangement syndrome. But the reality is that by Trump doing it, it gives it a certain sense that it discredits it.
Only to him, only to people with TDS. I mean, what the hell is he talking about? Objectivists are not supposed to care about the psychology or the motivation. Like
The
these are
personality,
we're
right?
looking at actions here. Is it good or is it bad? Yaron, And if a man does 1,000 good things and a couple of bad things, does that make him good or bad? I'm so sick of this.
Well, I mean, it just shows, yeah, it's an obsession with personalities over results, and
It's
not only
freaking
and holding them to a different standard. I mean, this wasn't even in the realm of possibility if Harris wins.
It's primacy of consciousness over primacy of existence. It's metaphysical, it's social metaphysician behavior here. This is not objectivism. This man is not, I mean, I hate to be like your own and say he's no real objectivist, but oh my
God. But it's more, he's a study for others with TDS, because it's like at this point, the people that aren't coming around are just like the ones that can't even admit they were wrong. It's like even
I don't care if he did it because he faced so much pressure from Americans to do it. I don't care if that's why he did it. Think of the worst, most just callous, shallow reason to do something because he wanted to get elected and he doesn't, whatever the reason.
Well, like the tech guys that sold out to the left to survive. I mean, that's kind of, callous, but I mean, that's at least, they came around once the veil lifted.
But he has appearing to
like Zuckerberg.
He has such a negative view of Trump that it overwhelms and colors everything he says, everything Yaron says. Like he finds the one negative thing to say about Trump getting rid of all this DEI crap. Like, why can't he just be positive and thankful for Trump doing something good? You know, like
Because then
why
he'd have to
this is
admit
the
that he was
disclaimer.
wrong.
It
Yeah, but
it
it's
also
also just
goes
like the,
back to this sanction stuff and confusion. It's like, oh, now because Trump did something good, people are going to confuse goodness with Trump.
it's the total fear of being confused with something evil, that something you think is evil. And
Right.
yeah, it is the sanction issue. Just he's just buried in under the sanction issue, and he can't get away from his disclaimer mentality, where he has to disclaim everything before he says anything positive about someone. So like it's just he fears that his audience will mistake him for a Trump supporter if he says the slightest positive thing about Trump. And so he just can't get away from that mentality. It's a disease, and it is tedious.
And Sonny's right too. It some of that is a cover for not wanting to admit you were wrong. I think.
I think that's a
I
big part of it.
don't know how much could be. I mean, who knows
He's
what goes on
arrogant.
in that
He's a
mind?
smug, arrogant smear master. I mean, all he does is ad hominem, you know? I'm sorry, that is not like there's no honest intellectual sanction problem going on. I mean, maybe that's part of his programming, but he's also just like a bad dude. And he he has I mean, I don't know. I don't want to also psychologize him, but I don't really care. But what I
Well,
see is that
you don't have to psychologize him. He's said it himself. He lives in the future. He's all about the future. So he doesn't think about the past. And if you don't think about the past, you can't regret your past. And so he is avoiding admitting mistakes that he's made because that's in the past. And so he's just spouting this stuff so he doesn't have to think about how he was wrong before.
he also, you know, he's doesn't write anything, and in the same sentences he will say two very opposite things.
Oh, that is
And
a recurring theme. It's like he
so
wants to cover the full spectrum to be
yeah,
able to
it's
say,
a
I was
cover his
right.
butt. Right, exactly. I see that. I've seen that with him for years where he's always got some sort of cover because he's always said everything.
And to be fair,
And
maybe that's true of the leaders of a lot of movements, but objectivism is supposed to be more reality based and not just trying to cover your bases.
Well, what Sonny was saying, that's an indication that he's a bad prognosticator. He thinks of himself as kind of like this objectivist prophet who's always making predictions and stuff. But what you have to do as that type of person is predict both sides. You predict both outcomes, and then you're always right.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, Sonny and I can't say too much after our prediction at the beginning of
yeah.
the show, I guess.
I was just thinking that too. I was like, well, like, how can I do this for next time? Because
Yeah, but you guys predicted one thing, and then you came on here and admitted you were wrong. So that's a sign that you're a healthy psychologist.
Yeah, and then the other thing is that Yaron and lots of other people in the liberty movement are just, up in arms about these J6 pardons. It's like, oh, such a miscarriage of justice. What about the rule of law? I mean,
totally agree. I think we should execute people who trespass. Like, what are we talking about? I mean, what is these people have been in prison for 4 or 5 years?
yeah, in some cases, I mean, and the thing is, with all this criminal justice reform, it's like you see these murderers getting out in a couple years.
Well, I if these people are Democrats who are saying this, I don't pay any attention to them at all because they just watched Biden pardon his crime family. And what did they say? Maybe he shouldn't have done that. It's not a good look. That's like all we got from the best of the Democrats, right? And most of them didn't have anything negative to say about it. They just let it go. And so I think Trump is fine pardoning the January 6th guys. I think it's not a big deal. They've already served a lot of time, and they didn't do much. There weren't very many violent encounters there. So basically, to put it in like a democratic term, it was mostly peaceful. And I think this mostly peaceful protest deserves a mostly generalized pardon. So just pardon these people, get them out of jail. Let's forget about this whole situation, which was overblown and, you know, was basically fake news coming from the left.
But these
And
people that hated Trump for years, they just decided that Jan 6 was now the best thing to glom on to rationalize their Trump hate going forward.
They really
And
did. They used it as a, well, I mean, and I've heard Yaron say that, I think, too, in some of the clips you sent me, Scott, where he was like,
he's
yeah, but
disqualified.
J6, but J6 was, and it's just like, what? Do they not know anything that's going on in the world? Because if you follow any of those cases, you can see the like lack of due process, the over prosecution, the pressure to to say they're guilty, the pressure against their families. I heard a father today of a J6er say that the federal agencies had been sicked on his businesses.
I have no
I mean,
doubt.
this is not like cool at all. Everything that happened there. In fact, I would love to forget about it, but I feel like the next step is everybody involved in that needs to be crushed. Everybody involved in that fake congressional hearing, everybody involved in these despicable
Some of them got
gulags.
pardoned.
well, you
Yeah,
can't
some of
because,
them did get pardoned, like Liz
yeah,
Cheney or whatever, and her and Adam Schiff. They got pardoned, didn't
Mhm.
they? But
yeah,
whoever you can go after, and it scares me as an American citizen that, in the Ross thing too. The Ross thing is part of this. But what we are seeing, and I mean, if you're stupid, you're not noticing that all of us are not free. We're not free because at any moment, the government can just come after us for anything and put us in prison, and nobody can do anything about it. I watched Congress people go to the prisons and try to deal with the treatment of the J6ers and help them, and they were absolutely powerless to do anything about it. All the,
Yeah.
for 4 years, those people have had to just deal with the persecution and the of, and Ross 10 years. And I just can't, this is not okay. Something has to be done about this federal justice system being absolutely out of control. And the fact that they think they can do anything to anybody. In addition, there are many, many more stories out there. I don't know if you know about this story. There's the guy who left Amazon and started his own business, and they felt that he was competing, but he was contractually, they didn't have he was allowed to compete. They didn't like that. Somehow Jeff Bezos sicked the federal government on this guy and
Mm.
his family. And if you follow that case, it's clearly, why is the FBI involved in a civil case with Amazon between this guy? And, things that just don't make sense.
I mean, the
I feel
FBI got Ashley Biden's diary back,
right.
and she was all the stuff that came out. I mean, I'm angry that Joe Biden is getting away with all this stuff in the laptop, and that's why he pardoned his family because of what's on that laptop. And
That's
they just
right.
were able to just, that, they're just like Justice Department is helping him with the investigation and trying to, they're just like, oh no, he's too incompetent to prosecute when they just don't want to
A-
prosecute big
a-
Democrats.
any one of us could be attacked by the federal government and crushed, and our families crushed for any reason.
Right.
And that
Yeah.
scares me. And then they obviously get off, their friends get off. So how is that a free country at all? If they can arrest us or sick federal agencies on us with their unlimited money and our families and pressure us and put us in prison for nothing. I just, or misdemeanor charges of like, there are people that were arrested in J6 who've been in prison for 4 years who never even entered the building,
Yeah.
well, I
who
think
were
that
just there.
the lawfare against the January 6th protesters was so massive and, you know, arbitrary that I think Trump is justified in blanket pardoning these people because he's making a statement, just like the left was trying to make a statement, you know, with their lawfare. He's making a statement saying this was wrong, the whole thing was wrong, and
Yeah.
just gonna do away with all your work. You know, all that arbitrary lawfare you waged against us is gone now.
I
And
completely
we
agree
just
with
we
that.
needed him in power just to have a fair fight against those forces.
William, even if somebody got snagged up into that who really did commit a crime, like a real violent crime on that day, who's now been pardoned, I'm okay with it. Like I agree that this whole thing, like it's better to protect the innocent than put a than and accidentally protect a criminal, one criminal or two or whatever. I think it's better to send that message and protect due process and our rights to protest, our rights to be, our free speech rights are wrapped up in all this too. Because I don't know if you felt this way, but after J6, no way was I going to any protests. I wouldn't
Right.
show up to a rally or a protest after J6 with the Biden regime in power because I don't want my name and my photo on a list and if something goes wrong, if somebody breaks a window, I'm suddenly in the gulag.
And that's when social media started cracking down on anyone suggesting there was anything not perfect about the 2020 elections. And it was just removed
It was
or
chilling.
suppressed.
It
Yeah.
was
Well,
chilling.
it would depend on the protest for me. Like if it was a good enough cause, I'd probably still go and risk, you know, being jailed or fined or whatever. But yeah, it is a risk now. And because we have this arbitrary lawfare, but that's again, that's something Trump is trying to correct. Like in his inaugural speech, he's saying we're going to end all of the injustices and make everyone is going to have equal justice now. And so hopefully he can achieve something to that effect. You know, or we can get closer to an equal justice system
It's
again.
crazy because they even went after a former president of the United States. You know, that didn't even protect Trump. Those same forces raided his home, arrested him, indicted him, charged him with felonies,
But the way
and
he
would have
stood up to
imprisoned
it,
him
I
if he
mean,
hadn't won. If he had not won this election, would he be in jail today? Because he might be.
oh yeah, I have no doubt that he would. That's where they were going with it if he didn't win. But him winning and surviving the shooting, I mean, it ended up adding to his mythos and
Yeah.
probably what he can get accomplished this time.
Well, I just hope that, I mean, I want to see what he's going to do. It's not just about freeing these people. It's something has to be done to correct this utter abuse of power.
I
And
did read the House is doing a new J6 committee going after the abuses of the select committee. They may not, I don't know how it's going to work with the pardon, but they're at least going to investigate what happened.
yeah,
Yeah,
and we got to
hopefully,
get Cash Patel and the FBI to clean house. And, I don't know what this Pam woman at DOJ can get accomplished, but,
well, he
people
did.
who did this need to go to prison.
He put
Yeah.
a hiring freeze on all federal employees, so that's a start while they do these investigations and figure out who needs to be fired, who needs to be hired to do the firing. You know, there's a lot that needs to happen, and hope we'll give them some time to clean house and see, what happens if we get a better Department of Justice and a better FBI and so forth.
We just need the freeze till we figure out what the hell's going on.
That's right.
Yeah,
So,
well, and that's also a good perspective. What I like about Trump is he puts it in common words. He has a good perspective on what's going on. He's like, we need to figure this out because obviously shit is hitting the fan, So he's got that common sense, average man mentality. Like, what is going on here? He doesn't put it into like fancy language. Oh, there's you know, these minute details need to change. No, he's got the broad swath of things. You know, it's like there's a whole situation going down here, and we need to figure it out. We need to drop everything and figure it out.
Yeah. Um, Predictions, not that Sonny and I have the best track record, but big events coming down the pipeline in the next few months.
Well, I hope to see more. I hope to see the MAGA verse expand. That's my new word, MAGA verse.
What do you mean by that?
I just want to see Trump's general attitude and common sense dealings expand throughout America. Like he's gotten more support from various communities in America, and
How great was when
he
he
won
signed those EOs on stage
Yes, that's
in
going to be a
front of the
new
press.
tradition.
I thought that was fantastic.
things like that, like starting new rituals, even like this signing right after the inauguration. And I don't know what he's going to come up with new ideas. He's going to have people coming at him with new ideas to rebuild America, rebuild the government, to make it more efficient. He's going to expand this MAGAverse that he's got going on. And I think that's going to be a good thing. Like he won the popular vote. That's a start. He like swept all the swing states. So I think we're going in the right direction. And I just hope to see more of that. I hope to see his people and his ideas expand throughout the country. You know, we're going to be more America first and less DEI, woke, and all that other bullshit.
Okay. Sonny?
Yeah, I think that's right. I I don't know if I could predict that he will. I mean, it's funny that you say the MAGAverse expand, and then we had like here in California, we had those fires, and oh my God, we just converted a bunch of lefty liberals to MAGA overnight. My concern, and I think there's going to be some internal wars on this. I mean, Trump is not, he's not going to be perfect because, he is a big spender. We have to like keep in mind that we're going to be disappointed by some things, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But
The
I think he's gonna
500 billion public-private partnership with
yeah,
Altman.
that I
That's
did
a
not
little
like that
dicey.
at all. And um and we're starting to see internal arguments like the H-1B visa argument that happened between the tech bros and the MAGA and Vivek now being kind of on the outs in a weird way.
Yeah.
Um and so we're going to see more of that because what you do have here in MAGA, you have conservatives and then you have converted Democrats who still are bringing even like RFK Jr., who I also really like. His instinct is to solve problems with big government.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to free, he's not looking for necessarily right away the free market way of doing the same thing. I agree with him on the problem. And then I think he goes kind of askew on the solution. And I wish that there was more free market people whispering in his ear saying, well, you could accomplish the same thing if you just remove these bad incentives. And, um, if we remove the market distortions caused by the government, it's going to change our health. If we're not subsidizing corn, we don't get corn syrup in everything, right?
Right.
So there's just all these distortions the government has done that is causing some of these problems. Um, and in some ways, I think he's on. I just would like to see more, uh, true conservative free market and moralizing going on. And there's going to be a pushback against the tech bro. They were Democrats until yesterday. These people voted for Biden in 2020. And
Not
so,
all of them are to be trusted. I mean, I'm
yeah,
dubious about
Sam
Zuck.
Altman. I mean, didn't we all just watch Sam Altman publicly steal a nonprofit to put a bunch of money in his pocket? Didn't we just see
Yeah, I
that
mean,
happen in
Elon's
front of our
suing him
faces?
over it.
So, come on.
Yeah, no, I just
So,
I'm very skeptical about Zuck.
yeah, I think there's going to be some internal warring. I mean, I hope the MAGAverse expands too, but I hope that the core MAGA people do more to convert these. We need to bring these people. The red pilling just started for them. They have yet to kind of get to where people who were red pilled in 2010 are. Like you have to be patient and make our arguments, make our cases. But I also don't want these people running the movement.
Right. You just
So,
got here.
Well, what I also part of the MAGAverse is political discussion. So what I'd like to see is less interactions and debates with the left and more internal debates like we're having with like Elon Musk doesn't like some of the things Trump is doing. Vivek doesn't like some of the things Trump is doing. So they're going to have these internal debates. And that's a good thing because that's debate within the right, within the
yeah,
sphere of the right. And I think the left just needs to be shut out entirely, as if they're just that whiny kid in the corner who doesn't know what he's talking about. Just shut him
Mhm.
out. And
absolutely.
that will be the expansion of the MAGAverse. And then you'll have branches within the MAGAverse, debating each other.
All right, well, you ready for my prediction?
Yeah, let's hear it,
Now,
Scott.
again, I'm wrong, but I I'm feeling like I felt in like 2020 January, like right after Soleimani was killed, and it's just like no force on earth can stop Trump. And so, it was right before COVID. And so I am actually predicting some sort of crisis, probably deep state inspired, to throw him off of his agenda.
Oh, absolutely. Remember what they did in 2016? I mean, they had lots of plans.
Yeah, which one?
But but I also think that things have changed. I think that you had a lot of power centers on the other side in 2016. It was basically Trump and a small ragtag MAGA team
Hmm.
and no power. There were very few billionaires and other nations. And, I mean, it was Trump against the world. And now it's not like that. It's not like that as much. A lot of people have come over I think that a lot of people wanted him elected versus 2020, where I think a lot of the people who fought against him in his election in 2020, I mean, just look at the Zuckerberg case where he actually gave a $500 million and to create the fraud that we saw in the swing states. And that's probably like allegedly. That's probably I don't want to get sued by saying that, but there are articles and stuff that talk about what he did. And like specifically, I read a lot of stuff about what happened in Wisconsin and that money that he sent into Wisconsin, whether knowingly or not, actually caused fraud there, in my opinion. With it chased nonpartisan clerks out of their jobs and they were replaced by Democrat operatives. The intimidation that was going on in the state by paid Zuckerbuck paid people
Yeah.
was insane. And so, but this year, Zuckerberg was, I don't know that he was before Trump got elected. Maybe he was. Didn't he say something in an interview before Trump was even elected that
He said like
him
surviving the shooting was
surviving the
one of
shooting
the
had
most
really changed his
badass things
mind?
he'd ever
But I
seen.
don't think
Yeah.
that was why. I think it's other things too. I mean, you can't make money if you're in a country in decline
Well, I
in the
think part
severe way that we were in.
they they've also been getting a lot of pressure from Europe and other countries on like how to run
Yeah.
their social media, and they're like, Jesus, I wish I had someone that could actually take up for me against these guys.
Yeah. And then you have all the I'm not, the Israel lobby, the Jewish billionaires and that lobby, and those people watching the left go hardcore pro
Right.
Palestinian. I think that really freaked out that faction, and those
Absolutely.
people have
Letting
come
the
around.
racism
So,
you talked about run free
yeah,
kind of brought some people over.
like, uh-oh, maybe we were wrong to, support this type of thing. So I think that you had a lot of different power centers, including billionaires, including other countries. You have Melee in Argentina and what's going on, oh, and Gert in Netherlands, and
Right.
the popular people. France is obviously they went all in for Marine Le Pen, but then she wasn't able to form a government. You
They're
just have all
hardly a
these.
democracy. I mean, Macron lost and he's still governing.
You have Brexit, you have Nigel Farage, you have Reform Party, you have all these new forces kind of operating on the world stage that are on our side. And so, yeah, maybe I'm sure you're right that there's going to be some shenanigans, maybe like World War III style something, maybe something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Some kind of provocation of something big. Um, who knows?
Like a
But
global pandemic.
yeah, like the bird
Maybe.
flu thing that they're trying to
Maybe
think
Zelensky's going to launch some more missiles into Russia.
Or
something
maybe
like
they'll
that.
just
Yeah, I mean,
set fire to everything in America like they did here in Southern California.
right. I mean, and it's still going on, by the way. Like just in the last week, there's no wind, there's no heat, and yet somehow we're having all these new fires. So these are set. This is arson. And I there's obviously I don't know who's doing it, but
Well, just to bring up some facts, we've been in a severe dry spell for over a year now, I think. And so that's why everything's dry. We haven't had our normal like December rain or anything. So it's not arson in several cases here. I think in the Eaton fire, they showed that it was probably brush flying into electrical lines in the
I
mountains.
think there may have been some arsonists that picked up after the initial fires
yes, that's
started.
there's some people
Yeah,
just being bad actors and taking the conditions, taking advantage of the conditions.
there's definitely that. And they actually arrested some guy who was setting fires after that. So there is that, but I think that at least the Eaton fire was caused by electrical lines, I think. But yeah, it's a terrible situation in Southern California right now with the fires, and there is wind, and we just got another fire yesterday, the Hughes fire
Yeah.
uh,
Mm.
around Castaic Lake, and I don't know, they haven't figured out what caused that fire yet, but it's mostly just there are winds in Castaic, so that was also wind driven for hours in the afternoon. Um, so it is a lot of wind. We're getting the Santa Ana winds in the mountains, and there's a whole lot of dry brush right now. So it's not entirely the left's fault, except they didn't do a lot of pre-attack clearance of brush in the mountains. Um, I think that the management of the mountains is poor here, and they don't do enough proper management to alleviate fires. So that's why we have these massive fires. They don't clear brush during the winter time when they should, because
Right.
it's easier to burn off the brush when it's damp after some storms or something. So I think they don't do enough of that, and they just let the brush build up, and then we have these catastrophic situations like we had recently.
Well, Sonny, we had all these other clips on COVID we were going to do. We want to have you back for that. Maybe, in a couple of shows or something, and we can go over those clips because you had some really good insights on it. Any other thoughts on the election,
Oh,
on
I
the
have a prediction for
inauguration?
California. I think
Okay.
Gavin Newsom is going to get recalled. What do you think, William?
I hope so. They tried before. Who was it?
Yeah.
Walter Williams or somebody? I
Right.
forget
But that was
who.
before the fire. It may work this time.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think the fire has flipped a lot of people in terms of just, I'm not saying blue to red, but anti-Gavin, the anti-Gavin sentiment in this state is off the charts right now.
Well, I voted for Steve Garvey um, in the last election. I don't know how to get rid of Newsom. He's ingrained. I think there might be some shenanigans going on over here just to keep him in power, but he's a good looking guy and he can talk, and so he's just got so many things going for him.
He's
But
Pelosi's nephew.
yeah, and so he's just really ingrained in
He's
the
still
political.
planning to run for president in 28. I have no doubt.
Yeah, but I
Even if
do.
he's recalled, he'll run for president.
Right.
But yeah, I do hope we get rid of him. I hope there's someone, a Republican, who can step up and
It could be a
compete.
Democrat. Nicole Shanahan might run.
Yeah.
Could be.
I,
Yeah.
we'll
She's
see. I
super
mean,
likable herself. She's super likable. She's a reasonable person. She's
she could win over some Trump supporters since she backed him with RFK.
absolutely. I think she's very much in line and in sync with Democrats and Republicans, I think.
Yeah.
The all the kind of better people in both parties.
I think there are just way too many Democrats in California to get rid of him. Maybe if we expose his corruption a little more, like he got caught, I think, doing some stuff during COVID. And then recently, I don't know if you saw the video, but he got caught lying about talking to the president on the phone.
No, I didn't
Some
see that.
somebody
I
was
did
asking
see that.
somebody was asking him about the fires, and this was caught on camera. And he's saying, "Oh, I'm just talking to President Biden on the phone about it." Then she said, "Oh, can I talk to him?" And he had to admit after that he didn't get the president on the phone. He wasn't really talking to anybody.
That's weird.
Yeah, that's some.
If you can
Well,
embarrass him, really embarrass him politically, that might draw some people away from supporting him. But other than that, I don't see how it happens.
He's
yeah,
also got, in California, everything is just so corrupt. I mean, it really is just people get appointed. But I think that you can still make some change with enough of a popular, if billionaires turn against him, which a lot of Silicon Valley has flipped, and the people after the Palisades fire, that's changed a lot of people in Southern California. So I don't know. He may have lost support. We'll see what happens.
yeah. Well, great conversation, both of you. William, any final thoughts?
I'm starting a prediction business.
When's the coronation, William? Predict that. When do we
Oh, also,
when do we crown our king?
I'm predicting that within the next couple years, before the next election, we will crown Trump God Emperor, and so then there will be no more need for elections. Um,
That'll take care
so
of
anyway,
Newsom.
So
yeah,
forget the voter ID law. We're just going to get a king.
yeah. I mean, and that'll be the best thing for the country. But but yeah, if you want to consult me, if you want a personalized prediction, just email me.
Yeah,
And
just put it in the comments section. We'll get it through to him.
Scott and
yeah,
I are charging negative money for our predictions. We'll give
I'll
you
predict
money.
things
We'll
for
give
my
you money
supper.
to take our predictions.
and
That's
a
right.
small percentage of my fees will go to you guys to support your prediction businesses.
Great. So, well, great. Well, this has been a fun conversation. Sonny, again, thanks for joining us. We hope to have you back again soon. I'm
Thanks,
Scott Schiff.
guys.
Absolutely. I'm Scott Schiff along with William Swig. This is the Ayn Rand Fan Club, and we will see you next time.